the script is going to entail. So I've recorded this already. So I went into, we have a sound booth in MACA. It's over in basically the room next door. So I went in there and I recorded all the audio. And then I went through and cut out all of my and my breathing and all the other stuff that is inappropriate. And then anything that wasn't a good take, I cut that out too, okay? So that part is kind of like the easy part of just kind of like grabbing stuff and cutting it out. I then went through and cleaned up some of the noise. There's still a little bit of noise that's in there, but once we put an audio track on top of this with a little bit of music, kind of elevator stuff going on, then we should be good. But what I want you to be able to do is to just be able to go through and see how to cut stuff out so you can start to separate it. So the idea here is that every single one of these sentences / lines could be separated into a different piece, okay? Some of these are obviously not needed. Now, all of this could be done inside of After Effects, but in After Effects, it's a little bit trickier to do, especially when you look at having all these layers and they're all going to be basically named the exact same thing unless you go through and rename each one. So a good way to kind of process this is by using this program called Audition. So this is Adobe's audio editing program. So if you have CC, you have Audition on there unless you didn't install it, but you should be able to get it. So it works very similar to After Effects. So up here, this is our file. You can just double click and then you go and find your file. So the audio file is on Canvas. You could download it, put it into your folder. Make sure you're keeping yourself organized. So you'll see all of my stuff here is already organized. Those are my main projects. And as I go into my color theory, I have an audio folder. I have my other After Effects project here. And then as I start making things like artwork, I'll start using artwork folder or imagery or movie or whatever, okay? I don't think I'll even need an imagery one. So I'm going to go into my audio folder. And when you record it, we use Pro Tools to record our stuff. You get a left channel and a right channel. So I'm sure you've kind of seen this before, or heard this before in your car. You have speakers, and sometimes the audio can come out of one speaker or another. When you record stuff, you can do it the same way. You can record into just the left speaker or just the right speaker. It records both at the same time and just splits it up here, okay? So when I send it out, I get this. This is my file that I exported, okay? So here is the unedited version, just so you can see where I have some things where I was talking or moving or shuffling around. So this is me opening and closing the door because I recorded it myself, so I had to walk out and check it and then come back in. Okay. Also, as you're talking into something like a microphone, sometimes you do have to take a breath. So you have to just get yourself centered. See? So, for obvious reasons, I'm not giving you that file. There's the edit one. So the edit one is me going through and taking out all the junk I don't need. If I messed up a take, I just recorded it again.
Color theory is an important part of the design process.
Okay, so there's that one line. So what we do is we go through here and we want to cut out each piece of this and put it into a new file and save it out. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go through the script that you have here and you're going to visualize what is going to be happening inside of your project. Okay, so we have to allow enough time for certain things to happen, so we can't just have color theory is an important part of the design process and then go right into the next thing, because we may want to show different ways that color affects certain things, right? So we want to allow some sort of spacing there. Now it would be kind of like a tedious thing to have each line or each sentence being a separate file. So I've already kind of located the areas that you should separate the files. Okay, so here is something that is all bunched together. Here's another one that's bunched together. Here's another one that's bunched together. Because in each one of these, we may need, I'm visualizing, we probably need a little bit more time to show that area off, right? When I show that there are warm and cool colors, I want to make sure that I have a graphic showing warm colors, cool colors, right? I don't want to just say there are warm and cool colors, and I pop both up on the screen at the same time. Makes it very difficult to read. Same thing with these, mixing primary and secondary creates territory colors. I don't want to just show the territory colors. I want to actually show the blending of the two colors to make that, okay? And then down here, each one of these is broken up into a separate sentence as well. Then there's this, and then each one of these is separate, and then there's these last three pieces, okay? So that's how you're going to break this up. So just some controls. Just like After Effects, we can zoom in on the work area, so you can see how I can just drag this. And then I can highlight here and then drag. So in audio files, you have what's called a waveform. Okay, this is a waveform. It's a visual representation of what is happening inside of the audio file. So when you see stuff moving, okay, it's not just straight, that's where audio is happening. Where you see a flat line, that's where no audio is happening. So while I recorded this, I tried to break my sentences up enough that it showed here's where the breaks are happening, okay? So in this case, this is probably my first sentence.
Color theory is an important part of the design process.
Boom. Okay. Now if I drag this bar over to here, this should be sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3.
What we see and how we see it can be controlled by simply choosing the right colors. The color wheel is the foundation for building successful color schemes.
Okay. So there I've grabbed those first 3 sentences. So now I can go to edit and I can say copy to new. And what this does is it copies what I have selected and it puts it into a brand new file. Then I can save that file as a separate piece, right? So I'm just going to go Control S, and I'm going to save it. Now, you probably know this already, but MP3 files are typically really low size, right? It's like 3 megabytes for an entire song. But what happens is that MP3 file is compressed, okay? That means that you've lost some of the data inside that MP3. A WAV file is uncompressed. That's what we want to save this as. So when we save stuff, we save it as this WAV PCM. That way we don't lose any data. Anytime we deal with any sort of files where we're taking it from here to here to here to here, we have to make sure we're not compressing it along the way. The only time we want to compress is right at the end. That's the only time we want to compress our stuff. Because what happens is if we compress it here and here and here and there, it's going to turn out looking like junk at the end of it. Okay? So, WAV should be good. Sample type 44-100 and 24-bit. That should be fine. That's just like what it was recorded at. Just like frames per second, this 44,100 is how many frames per second the audio was recorded at. Okay? If you have a lesser number here, like 11,000 is another common one, the audio could sound kind of choppy or like really grainy or just not as clear. So I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to give this a name. This will be, I don't need to put color theory because I know what it is. Important part. Okay, so I like to put like one of the first key words that's in here. So for this, important part, okay, that is my call signal that that's what that one means. So when I drop this into After Effects and the labels it important part, I know what that layer is used for because it's that one. Okay, so I'm going to put this as important part. I'm going to browse to my folder, P drive, Sarcona, 2200, work, color theory, audio, and then I'm just going to make a new folder called cut up. Important part, save it, and okay. All right, so that one's done. So now I can hit Control W to close it, or I can right click on this and say close, and then go on to the next one. Now as I start editing, it'll load up this area here that'll just show me like what the next one is doing. So now I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. I can drag this down, and then I'm going to assume, because I have a blank area here, a flat area here, that that's going to be my next sentence.
The color wheel is composed of 3 primary colors.
Okay. Now I don't want to leave too much blank space at the beginning of this, because what I want to do is when I drop this in, I know that right there is when the audio starts. If I need it closer or further or whatever, I can move that around. But I don't want to have to guess, like, I'm putting it here, but the graphics is going to start like way over here because I have all this dead space. So I'm going to shrink this to about there. Oops. I'm going to bring my little ticker back here.
The color wheel is composed of 3 primary colors.
There we go. I'll go to edit, copy to new. At this point, in my own workflow, I look at the hotkey. Okay, we don't have a hotkey for this because it wasn't on the After Effects hotkey sheet, but I always look at it. Shift Alt C, right? So I don't use that. Shift Alt C. That should have worked. Oh, because I hit Control Alt C. There we go. So now it copies it to a new file.
The color wheel is composed of 3 primary colors.
If I need to trim anything further, I can just highlight it and hit the delete key, and it'll just delete that piece of audio out.
The color wheel is composed...
I think I actually cut off a little bit of my intro there. That should be close enough.
The color wheel is...
There we go. So now we just go to Save As. Again, Control Shift S. So Control Shift S. Primary colors. It's going into the same folder as Away 44. Okie dokie. Control W is my closer. Now watch how I can do this. Whoop. See how it just pops it right over the other side. Much easier to select. It does have snapping too, so you may need to adjust where your ticker is so you're not snapping to it. You may need to zoom in.
Composed of 3.
I'm also going to hit this. This is loop playback, which should play back just what's in the selection.
Mixing neighboring primary colors evenly creates what's referred to as secondary colors.
Okay, and you want to make sure that you grab those, even though you don't really see it too much on the graph. I am trailing the S, so when I say primary colors, you want to make sure you grab the whole thing. So it's fine to have a little bit of extra on the end, just not the front. Because what could happen is you could pull it back like this. You're cutting off that S, and then it's really abrupt.
Mixing neighboring primary colors evenly creates what's referred to as secondary colors.
See how it says color? And I just like stop there. So you have to make sure you get all the stuff there. So Alt Shift C. There we go. Control Shift S. These are secondary colors. And you could even put in here like a number, like sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3, just to help you kind of stay in line with which one's which, okay? Or it may help to put it at the front. 03 secondary colors. That way when you go into your browser, they'll already be in order, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. So we go to the next one. We drag this over, shrink this into...
Mixing a primary and a secondary creates territory colors.
Okay, Control Alt C, Control Shift S. Oops. 04. Okay, so you're going to do this throughout this entire thing. Eventually you're going to get to the spot in the script where you'll get to the picking of colors, okay? Now, because you only have to do 2 of these, that's like your base grade. So remember at the beginning of the semester I talked about the going beyond stuff, okay? So your base assignment is you're picking 2 of those. If you want to go beyond, that's where you could go beyond by doing 3 or 4 or 5 of them. So while we're at the cutting stage, it makes more sense just to cut up everything inside there, okay? So if we go to this, so this is sentence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By the time we get to here, these are all the meanings of colors, right? So I'm just going to jump over there.
The color black is mysterious.
Boom. Nope. One off.
Color white promotes...
There we go.
The color white promotes equality.
All right, so I'm going to Control Alt C that one. I'm going to Control Shift S it. I'm going to go to 06, I said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 07A, color white. Okay, that way I know that 07 is all those colors, and A is just the first one. It's the white color that's in there. Then I close it, and then when I do the next one, which is black,
the color black,
I'm going to zoom in a bit,
is mysterious. The color black is mysterious and can be a symbol of secretive and unknowing. It could also signify rebellion or death.
Okay, I'm going to Control Alt C that, Control Shift S, 07B, color black. Okay, so I'm helping myself stay organized. That way I know like which ones are in which part. So when I get to here, these are all 07A, B, C, D, and E would be all 5 of those already cut up. So if you decide you only want to use white and blue, you know which 2 to grab from that. If later you decide, I do have time, I'm going to add another one, then you could add more in there and it's already cut up, already ready to go. Okay? So these are all the 7s. This is the 8. this will be the 9, okay? So in 9, you'll see that, again, you're only picking one, but if you want to go beyond and push yourself a little bit further to create a more complete piece, then you could add more of these inside there. But you still cut them up, you still process them. So I would do 9A, 9B, and 9C and specify what each one of those are. And then you'll have 10, 11, and 12. So you'll see it worked out kind of perfect that we have actually just like 12 pieces to this entire puzzle of what we're going to be creating. Okay? So once you're done with this, you should have important part. Let's rename this 01 and primary colors. There we go. Okay. That's still open, so let me close that. All right, so we have this folder, and inside the folder is this, this, and this. So these are just my audition files. I don't need these audition files anymore. I can delete these because, like I said, they're not needed. All I need are these. The wave files are my actual files, okay? So I don't get anything out of doing it the other way. Now, just for a fun kind of detour, Audition has a bunch of cool stuff inside this that you could play with. So one of the favorites here is telephone voice, and it sounds really awesome. So we're going to hit telephone voice.
Mixing a primary and a secondary creates character colors.
So it sounds like I'm on the telephone.
When choosing colors, the color wheel can be divided into warm.
Now we also have this. This is your audio. So part of my audio, when I stepped out of the booth and then I came back in, I was probably like 3 inches closer or 3 inches further away than the first time I recorded. So I had to up the audio of the first part of this. So if you need to, you can grab anything inside here and just raise the audio. And you see how bigger graphs mean louder, okay? So I could just adjust this and make sure that they're all kind of at the same level. Oops, let me undo that. I could also grab this. So if this was a song, which eventually we'll get into adding music in here too, there is a little triangle right here. I can drag this and do a fade in of that piece of audio. So that way I can kind of gradually bring that audio in. Instead of setting keyframes in After Effects, I can very easily just kind of fade it in and fade it out. Now it's not going to sound good here because this is dialogue.
It's an important part of the design process. What we
Okay,
see-
doesn't really sound good because it's audio, it's dialogue, but for a song it would sound wonderful. And then this is my favorite one. This is time and pitch, and pitch shifter.
Color theory is an important part
So-
of the design process. What we see and how we see it can be controlled.
So this
by
is
choosing
a
the right
dialogue box, kind of like an
color. Color
effect
wheel is the
slider.
foundation for
Right now it's
building
exactly what we
successful
heard, okay? But then I can take
color wheel
this.
is composed of 3 primary colors. Mixing neighboring primary colors evenly creates what's referred to as secondary colors.
Mixing a primary and a secondary creates territory colors. When choosing colors, the color wheel can be divided into warm
And cool colors.
So you can modify stuff. So when you look at any movie, they're going through and they're tweaking like all the sounds of every single thing that happens. A great kind of behind the scenes is Wall-E. There's like very little dialogue in the movie at all, right? It's like all effects. And all these cool sound things. So there's a lot of stuff that you can actually do inside here, which is pretty nice. Here's some noise reduction stuff too. So if you want to remove clicks and pops, you want to de-hum stuff or remove hiss, they have just buttons for just doing that kind of thing. They also have delays and echo. So if you wanted, like the telephone one made it sound like I was on the telephone, echo.
Individual colors can also be isolated
There you
to
go.
help convey it.
So now I'm at a baseball field. Some of these will have drop-down presets, so you can try those. The interface is obviously very intimidating, especially when you see all those sliders there and all these sliders here. So the best thing is just kind of play with it and see.
Suggestive meaning. The color white promotes equality, purity, and cleanliness.
So creepy.
White
Okay. So just some fun stuff while you're in audition that you could play with if you wanted to. A while ago for... okay. So now that we have our audio, the next step is to go into After Effects and start building the stuff. You're not animating your stuff yet. You're simply building the stuff that you'll be using to animate to, okay? So here is that color wheel. I showed this last week, where if I rewind this and hit play, we can see the colors coming onto the screen. Now you can see that there's motion blur here. That's what's slowing it down, obviously. And then I added in some extra graphics into this just to, again, kind of test some things out. The biggest, excuse me, the biggest thing is you want to test out what your animation is going to look like to see if you're on the right track, okay? So here I'm showing, in this case, let me turn the motion blur off. There we go. I'm showing each color. So right now they all just kind of pop in. I'm going to change that, obviously, so that I just show the primary colors and then show the secondary colors and then show how the territory colors are a mix of those. Okay? And then I have this little triangle pop up. And if you look, the triangle is making the red one big, the orange one, and as it goes around, it's changing its color to whichever one it's pointing at. Okay? Now the way that this was set up is I've used this. So I created this little animation, or this little setup here, where if I take the shape layer, there he is, and I rotate him, as he rotates to each one, their animation is actually automatic. So depending on which one I want it to point to, it automatically animates based on this rotation, okay? Now I'm not expecting you to become a master at this, but I do want you to be at least exposed to it so you see what's possible, okay? So the way that this thing works, and again, it's more than you're going to be able to comprehend if you have no programming stuff at all. Sure. Is there's an expression, not that one. I grabbed the wrong one. There it is. So here's the expression that controls that. So what this does is it looks at the rotation of that little triangle, okay? So when the triangle is here, where is this? So this says when this is at negative 23, be at 0. When this is at negative 10, that's the middle point that I found there, be big. And then when it's at 0, which is the other side of it, then just be 0, okay? Or just be back to normal. And then here is the maximum I want to scale, and here's the minimum I want to scale. So it's going to go from 0, which is just its normal size, to 120% of what it was, and then back to 0. So that's the range that I wanted to put on there. Okay? And then if you've, like I said, never used expressions before, this is all brand new stuff to you. So what it's doing here is there's an if statement, okay? In an if statement, it says exactly what I just described. If you're here, be this size. If you're here, be this size. If you're here, be that size, okay? And what I'm using is this function called linear. And what it does is that's the thing that's controlling it. That's the thing that's tying it to being between these two ranges, okay? So just like you advance your time, you say at frame 0 I have a keyframe, at frame 20 I have a keyframe. What happens in between there, that's what that linear is basically telling it to do. It's saying when you're at negative 23, be small, and when you go up to 0 or negative 10, then get big, okay? And there's 2 of them that are in here. This one here tells it to get big from negative 23 to negative 10. This one tells it to get smaller from negative 10 to 0. Okay, so I have to have 2 in here. One makes it big, and then the other one makes it small. And then the other one just goes back to its original setting. Okay, so we'll get more into this kind of stuff, but I just want you to see that kind of stuff. Because this gives me the ability to animate this however I want. If I decided I wanted to go like this, and then like this, and then like back like this again, I'm only animating one thing now. I'm only animating that triangle, and the rest of my animation is coming from all of that expression, all of that stuff that is being controlled, okay? What else do I have here? Oh, I also have a change to color, and that's what changes the color on this. I just have some extra keyframes that do just change the color of this. And that was done manually. So if I did want to go this way and that way and this way, I would have to tie that in some other way. But because I just went down the one way, it was fine. Okay? Like I said, you don't need to do that kind of stuff. I just want to introduce it. I also have in here some kind of look development. Okay, so part of your process is looking at what you want the end result to look like. We don't want to just like lock it in, but we want to get closer to getting it. Okay, because it'll give you a better idea of what's happening. So in my original one, I didn't have any of this stuff here. I didn't have this adjustment layer there. This was on a black background. Okay, so this is like the one I showed last week, and it looks neat. No, it doesn't look horrible. It looks neat. But then I added some more stuff to it. So I added this adjustment layer, which I think doesn't do anything anymore because I didn't need it. Yeah. And then I dropped it into a new comp, and then I created the background color. I added a drop shadow to it. And now I'm starting to get closer to what is my end product going to look like, right? So now I'm getting a better feel for what the end result is going to look like, so I can start to tie everything together. If I try to do this too late in the game, I may find that, oh geez, the background color I've chosen here doesn't work, but there it does work. So now you have to kind of fight between the two things. If I know that this is going to be my constant background color, every graphic I drop on it, I need to make sure it looks good on that graphic. Instead of trying to force everything to look good with this background or with the individual items, I'm making sure they look good with the background. I could also adjust things like the hue and saturation. So here I have just a hue and saturation adjustment that just controls the saturation of this specific item. So I may want to go something a little bit more classic-y and just kind of desaturate it a little bit. I may want to add, there's my drop shadow. Click on my comp, click on my effect, click on my color correction, curves. There you are. I may want to add like a curves to this too. Maybe I want to add a little bit more sharpness to this. Okay, so then I can again go through and kind of play with what these colors are, because whatever color scheme I kind of pick here, those are the colors I'm going to be picking from for the rest of my assignment. So when I get to the red and what red means, that's the color red I'm going to pick from. I'm not going to pick from this red because that's a different red than this red. So I want everything to kind of tie together. Okay. Same thing when we talk about white and black. I need to make sure that my white and black are coinciding with all the other stuff. The yellow matches the yellow. My territory colors are matching those. Okay. So as you work on your stuff, the first thing you need to do is cut out the audio, and then you need to go through and start building these little graphics so that you can basically just test stuff. Okay. This is kind of like the research stage where we're just figuring out how we want things to work. This little animation I actually don't like. The triangle thing is neat, but I don't like this because it looks like that line is like pushing it over, and that looks weird. So I just want to do something different for that. Okay, tie them in some other way. That one web page had like a diamond. That was kind of a neat way to show the two colors, but maybe a circle in the middle shows how the two colors are coming together or whatever, right? So there's lots of different ways we can tell the story of each one, and so we have to go through this kind of playing around sandbox stage to figure out what we want to do for it. Okay? Then once you have these kinds of things, then you can start working on different elements you want to add to it. So when we get to the part of the script here where we're talking about different color combinations, it does help in a lot of these when you do talk about color and you do talk about the effectiveness of it, that you're also showing examples of it that are relevant, right? So you can't just say red is used to increase food cravings without actually showing some sort of food, right? Do you know like the number one color used in restaurant logos is like red and yellow? Wendy's, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, fast food logo. And I think we also found out that Chrome sometimes works faster than Internet Explorer. So let's see. It does. Look at that. All right. So you can see the different colors here. Here's red and yellow. This one here especially. Here's red. There is some yellow on the kernel here. Here's red and yellow, red and yellow, red and yellow. Okay. This Wendy's doesn't have one, but that Wendy's does. So you want to show this kind of stuff. And you could actually watch, just for more understanding for yourself, there's plenty of videos on YouTube that also discuss what these colors mean further. So if you are going to use something like black or yellow or red and you're not 100% convinced as to what they do, watch videos, do some research on each one of these things, because you want to make sure that you understand the topic so that you can convey what the topic means, right? That one's still loading. Same thing with the color blue, used to show trust and honesty and also promote relaxation and be soothing. So blue, soothing color. Okay. So you may want to not show pictures like this because we don't want to show actual pictures. We want to show graphics. We want to show stuff that we've created in here. But we may want to show blue items that are soothing. So we may want to show something like this, but just show like some strokes, right? Just show like a little bit of ocean ripples in there because water is kind of soothing. And let's also have them kind of moving so that it does look soothing. We don't want them to go crazy fast because then it's not soothing. Nice and slow. That's what we want. Ooh, look at that. That's a neat graphic there itself. Trust, dependable, strength. Oreo. And Walmart. Oh, that's funny. Excitement. There you go. Okay, so this is kind of a neat way too to show this. Now again, don't do the actual logo. So if you're doing Dell, don't do actual Dell. Find a word that looks like Dell's logo that you can still use that's blue, that people looking at it would say that's probably Dell's logo that they ripped off. Okay? The same thing with like Netflix or any of these. And they're Hooters, friendly, cheerful, and confident. Right next to oh, jeez. Logos are so funny. Same thing with any of these, right? So if you're using Monster, don't do that. Use something else. Like I said, you can switch an M for a W. You can switch an E for a 3 or anything like that, right? The idea is that you're getting the idea across of what it is without actually saying this is McDonald's or this is Burger King or anything. One of the ones I sketched out, I forgot to bring it today, was for KFC, but instead of the Colonel's picture, I had a picture of a chicken, and I put CKN. So people would know that's the Kentucky Fried Chicken logo because it's the same look to it. That's cool. I'm probably going to save that graphic. Okay, so then you're building your graphics, you're building your test samples, and you're cutting out your audio. Okay, so basically the rest of this week is going to be doing that kind of stuff. Once you have your test stuff, once you have your graphics or some of the graphics, you don't even have all of them, and you have your audio cut up, next week I'm going to show how we're going to start to assemble this and start to time out our stuff and get it all working correctly. Okie dokie? Cool.